Should we have, do these all be green or?
Well, I think when we speak, we're on the screen or
So
something.
I've got these green because, all right, it's not shifting. That's really interesting. Hey, Sally,
But
can you do me a favor and mute yourself for the moment? I'll see if it comes back to us. No, it doesn't do that. It's focused on you.
Oh, I
let me
see.
if I can
We're up there in the
change-
corner.
Yeah.
It's
okay.
My bright orange,
We can be there.
it's my sweatshirt, so I can
And,
walk
yeah,
the dog and
that's
the
how I can
bird
find you.
and not get shot.
Okay, I'm gonna go to gallery, which will come back.
So you can get antique insurance and then a one-time license.
That's why I was wondering if it's worth doing that. Because then I can really drive once a week.
No, that's not true. Just,
Are you ready?
yeah.
Okay, good. All right. All right, very good. Okay, so I would like to call the Franklin Township Historical Commission and Historical Architectural Review Board combined hybrid meeting to order on Tuesday, December 5th at 7:10 p.m. In attendance, in addition to myself, are Sally Gallagher, Chuck Phillips, Nan Latimer, Lou Mandich, and Sarah Beth Kohat, as well as 2 members of the public. And first order of business is public comment, which can pertain to anything on the agenda. Do our members of the public wish to make any comment? Okay. By the way, if you do at some point, excuse me, I didn't think of this.
Sounds like a dryer with something in it. doesn't it?
All right. Okay, the next order of business is the approval of the Historical Commission HARB meeting minutes from August 1st, 2023. I do have a couple corrections that I would like to note on the minutes, thanks to an email from Sally. And the corrections are as follows. On page 2 of the minutes, item F, the second paragraph under item F, the possibility of having the brochures place in local wineries should be placed with a D. On the same page, under section I, in the third paragraph under section I, in response to a question from Mr. Phillips about connections with Fair Hill, the word that immediately follows "and" should be deleted. And then on the third line, it says friendly terms and that fact should be the fact. And finally, for clarifications at the end of the sentence, it should be the Big Elk Creek was not an issue that will cause any difficulties in the 2 working together. So are there any other corrections that members would like to present? Not hearing any, I would like to entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes as amended.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Okay.
And I'll second that.
Okay, so it's a motion by Mr. Phillips, a second by Mr. Mandich. All in favor of approving the minutes as amended, please signal by saying aye or raising your hand. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Okay, so the minutes are unanimously approved. Okay, then the next item on the agenda is the minutes from the HARB meeting of September
Fifth.
5th. And there needs to be one emendation to this. The word agenda in the header should be changed to minutes. Yes, that was just rather brilliant oversight on my part. I got them done very early and quickly, but never went back to look at them until this evening. Are there any other suggested corrections to the minutes?
No.
Hearing none, I would like to entertain a motion for approval of the minutes as amended.
I will make a motion for approval of the minutes as amended.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Ms. Latimer seconds. Okay, all the HARB members present, if you would signify your assent to this motion by saying aye or raising your hand. Aye.
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 Okay, so we have, that's unanimous. So I won't ask if anyone opposes. Okay, the next item on the agenda concerns updating historic resource surveys and PHMC data from the map. This has been on hold for a long time. It remains on hold. Though we may produce a somewhat different list of properties with information on the historic properties, descriptive information on the historic properties, because the folks working on the Mason-Dixon historical interpretation, Mason-Dixon Art Corner historical interpretation and connectivity project or plan, which for the rest of tonight, I'm just going to call MD HIP, which is what they call, which is what the Conservancy calls it. So there may be some progress going forward on that. Anybody have any comments? Okay, we'll move on to the Churchill African American Church Cemetery. I had talked to Crystal between our last meeting in August and today. I haven't talked to her recently, in part because I've been very busy, but my guess is that with a little bit of luck, we may start cleanup in February. It will be pretty basic initially because we'll just have to work on getting the property walkable. But once we get, and also once we get through January, the Sportsmen's Association will be done with hunting. So I've been talking with Bob Magnus about that. So we may be able to work out details for their participation as well. But I expect that will be, I'm hoping that will be late winter, early spring next year, depending on the weather and people's time and availability. But I would like to get that started.
I'd like to add to that, remember, I have lots of equipment. I have commercial grade leaf blower, backpack. I have, 2 commercial grade weed whackers, one with a blade, one with thick rope. So I'm happy to bring those along and do some of the work, but not all of it.
Sounds good, Nan. I have a decent, I don't know that how much leaf blowing we'll be doing initially. I think it'll be more trying to get brush and even dead trees off the property by cutting them up, because there are some kind of dangerous leaning trees. There are trees that are already down. So if we can get those cut up and out of the way, it'll just become easier to walk. This is clearly going to be more than a year's worth of work.
But
I mean,
yeah,
you've seen it, so.
yeah. And I also, when we get to it, I found something that could be useful for because there's a lot of the autumn olive in there, which I have here on the farm. I have something that looks like a bingo dauber, but it's blue and it's full of Roundup. So you daub the stumps and so it kills it. So you know you've done it. So I've got lots of stuff. So when we're ready to go, check my inventory. I'm happy to share.
Okay, so that's like a brush killer after you clip
Yeah,
the
it's
brush?
full strength Roundup that you put in there, but it has a blue dye. So when you cut the stump
Right,
of the autumn olive, which is a caliber of what, 2 or 3 inches, you daub
Right.
it with it and you know you've done it because it's bright blue.
okay, so that sounds good.
Right.
Um,
Lots of stuff. Happy
what
to share.
what did you call it again?
What?
Blue dauber or?
Well, it's got blue dye in it. It's got Roundup, full strength
Okay.
Roundup in it. It's a hand tool. But it's like if you ever go to bingo, like at the and they have daubers that you do to know what you have. Sorry. It just colors it blue. I mean, it colors it blue, but it's got herbicide in it.
Right.
Sorry, been a long day.
No, that would be a good thing because that's very much a spot thing.
Yes, absolutely a spot thing.
Right, because we've got some
You got a lot of it in there.
nice ferns and we've got some other stuff in there.
Oh
that
yeah, but you've got a
would be
lot of
good to
that
leave.
autumn olive, which is nasty stuff. Because even when you
Right.
use this, it turns into a bush, and you got to do it again. It's nasty stuff. It takes a while, years to kill it.
Yeah, I have it. It's
Yeah,
terrible.
you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, and it has thorns.
Yep.
and-
Yep.
Yeah, it's ugly.
Sounds good. Any other comments about the? Okay, then I'll just, from my point of view, there's nothing to report at the moment on the other township cemeteries. And there's been no further work with the what I'll call the record book of the Free Christian Church that built that. The church associated with sorry, I'm making notes as I talk. Free Christian Church that's associated with the Mount Olivet Cemetery.
The cemetery on Flint Hill, someone has mowed it. It's not overgrown. I mean, it's a little bit overgrown, but it's not bad. Just like,
Okay,
yep.
that's good to know. I know that there was somebody I believe they were actually a resident of London, Britain, who was interested in taking that on. So I guess that's happened.
I'll keep an eye on it when I drive by.
Thanks for that update, Nan. Okay, well, one more time with feeling. The next item on the agenda is the Mason-Dixon Art Corner Historical Interpretation and Connectivity Project. There was a meeting on this that Paul Overton and I attended in November. And it was sort of the inaugural meeting in which they outlined the contract associated with the project and general goals for the project according to the scope of work. They presented the scope of work. They're now engaged in what's essentially a data collection phase, which is to say that the Brandywine Conservancy and in association with Heritage Strategies and one other and a design firm are essentially the management team for the project. In other words, the grant is being managed by them, and township supervisors, historical commission members, park board members are acting as a member of the advisory committee. So we're the non-professional advisors with input, and they're the professional staff who know what they're doing. They're going to be collecting information and are collecting actually information on historic resources in various townships, possible sort of ag tourism sites. So that can include a wide range of things, from a farm that welcomes visitors to wineries and cideries and breweries, and various other related information. So let me just review this. Oh, also, Janine Spears, who some of us know from various projects that have occurred here, is a participant in terms of, she's sort of the county representative and an observer, basically there to make sure that we stay on track, and she acts as kind of an honest observer. And the design team that is involved is Miller Design Works. So as you know, we basically went over the outline of the plan development process. The plan development process will take 18 months unless there's an extension. And during that 18-month period, the bulk of the work will be done roughly in 16 months. And in addition to the historic resources, preserved lands, current trails, information on the ARC and Mason-Dixon line sites is also being acquired, and in some cases being corrected and updated. And the next meeting will be in January, and that will basically focus on reviewing what has been collected and the discussion concerning the heritage themes that could sort of focus the trails, as well as possible hosting facilities, will be identified. And then after the January meeting, there will be 4 more task force meetings, and the 3 public meetings will be planned. And as a result of the supervisors meeting where I did this report, I'm going to act as the point of contact for the township. Each township is going to have a point of contact, and Elk, Franklin, London Britain, and New Garden are all participating in this multi-municipal project. Are there any questions? Okay, then we can move on. The next item is 896 roadwork in a walkable Kemblesville, and I guess my interest here is, Chuck, you had some comments last time. I didn't know if you had anything to add what you'd said then, and Sarah Beth, as you live along 896 and are going to experience a taking, I wondered if you had any updates from your point of view on the progress of the 896 road.
Do you want Chuck to go first, or?
Chuck, do you have any?
I don't have any updates.
Okay, so why don't you?
I don't know that I have too much information on it, but we are told that they are still planning to proceed with construction starting in the spring. As of maybe a month ago, we were told they had not yet put it out to bid. We might be the only household that has not settled.
So you haven't settled.
We have not settled.
Right.
I don't know that we will for a while. But as far as I know, everything's moving forward.
Okay.
Okay, so it's a project that's been in the works for probably more than a decade, and generally, they're going to widen 896 and make it flatter. So taking out some of the hills, the dips, the curves, adding places where state police could pull people over or sit and, have people could pull over for safety reasons. I think in some places they might improve drainage. Some intersections are gonna be realigned, so they're more of a, what's the word, like,
A T intersection.
A T, yeah.
or a cross as opposed to like some that are on an angle. And then I guess one of the bigger things is at 841, they're gonna put in a roundabout. And let's see, I guess.
841 and 896.
Yes. There will be, the project will run from roughly the New London line with Franklin almost to the Delaware line. So it's largely going to be in Franklin and in London, Britain. I don't know if it actually crosses into, I can't remember if it crosses a little into New London or not. There'll be a turn lane, there'll be a couple turn lanes added. I think there'll be one added at Chambers Rock, and there'll be one added. So southbound, there'll be a turn lane for Chambers Rock. And then I think southbound also, there's going to be a turn lane for Hess Mill. Where there's always, the road is already pretty wide there for other reasons, but it'll be formally a turn lane. There's going to be a three-way stop in Kemblesville. So traffic coming, whether you're coming up and down 896 or on Appleton, will be forced to stop in the center of Kemblesville. The northbound, well, the south side of 896 as it enters Kemblesville. In other words, if you're coming into Kemblesville from Delaware, that road will be teed into, or more teed into, the line that 896 makes with Appleton. That will remain straight, but you'll no longer be able to zip down Appleton Road from 896 because there will be a stop sign there. Excuse me, the width of the road in Kemblesville will not change much. It won't be widened there because Kemblesville is a historic district, and by not expanding the boundaries of the existing pavement in and right of way in Kemblesville, the state avoided what's known as the Section 106 process, which is a somewhat involved review of the effect of the road work on the properties where, say, land would be taken.
From a historical perspective.
As a result, yeah, because they have historical status. So Kemblesville is a state, is recognized by the state of Pennsylvania as eligible for the National Register as a historic district. There are a couple other properties in the township that are also recognized by the state of Pennsylvania, actually the Pennsylvania Museum and Historical Commission, as eligible for the National Register, but in those cases, the structures are all set back quite a distance from the road so that there was inherently no adverse effect, is the technical term, for any expansion of the road in those locations. In most cases, like there's significant work in front of Sarah Beth's house because not only are they probably increasing the size of the shoulder, but they're also grading the slope so that it will improve line of sight. So she's essentially looking at losing just about every plant that stands between her house and the road. I think that's a fair assessment, right? So they obviously have real concerns about wanting that buffer restored.
It's a little more than that part.
Yeah, but that's,
Subjective.
we'll leave, I'm not asking you to talk about what, to go into specifics because that's, between you and your lawyers and the state.
So when they widen it, is it gonna be 2 lane each way?
No, it's gonna be the present, so basically, I think what's gonna happen is the lane widths will not change, but I think they're working to make a full 4 or 5 foot shoulder.
4 feet, yeah.
Yeah, for almost the entire length. And then in places where they're talking about adding turns lanes, it will be widened. I don't know what's gonna happen. Exactly what it'll look like when they put the roundabout in, but I know from the plans I've seen, the roundabout will actually be shifted. It will not be centered on the current location. It will be shifted downhill a little on 841. So as you're on the northbound, the north side of 841 or the east side, I don't know. I think it's the north side. What will happen, it'll be the tremendous amount of regrading in order to make that possible. So all that's just, that's been in the works.
It's under track.
Well, it's going to be, yeah, so it's supposed to be, I think, 18 months. So you can expect a year and a half of looking for alternative routes. And because there will be times when large sections of 896 will be impassable.
So how far north of 841, and I don't take it, how far north is like
So beyond Hess Mill Road, not the traffic circle is confined to that intersection.
how much further?
So, yeah, it's all the way, basically all the way to the New London Township, the line with New London and Franklin, which is just, I think, I don't know if it's at Hess Mill or just beyond Hess Mill or,
It's just before.
yeah, so that would be why it's also in New London, because it's going to include work on Hess Mill.
You
Yeah,
know,
it
the
is just more, because
you know-
it's, sorry.
You know the veterinary clinic?
On 896, yeah.
Yeah.
That's not in our township.
Yeah.
So Hess Mill is, and that's not.
Yeah, but
Somewhere
I don't
within,
think where Hess Mill goes into, I think when you're driving down 896, the welcome to Franklin Township sign is south of Hess Mill.
oh,
I think
okay.
that end of Hess Mill is actually in New London.
It's probably basically where the road opens up there.
I still don't see the logic in the whole thing. I'm sorry. It makes no sense to me. We went to a town hall meeting before COVID and everybody was talking about traffic calming, speed limits, slowing everybody down. They take the stop sign down at that stopped you on 796 when 896 joined. The four-way stop works just fine. I just don't get it. And I talked to Mr. Galligan about it, and I thought he would be against it, but he sort of said it's a federal project, like there's nothing we can do. And I just don't get it. I'm sorry. I thought we were slowing people down, and now we are not. So.
Yeah, so you're going to lose that stop sign that's essentially at Den Road.
I have no idea.
You are, because when they
Yeah, that'll be,
reduce the height of the hill,
yeah.
when they essentially, they're going to shave the hill there. One of the reasons that the stop sign is there is to slow traffic before it gets to the current intersection, because you don't have a clear line of sight. And so when that's down, that will go away. And traffic, they'll undoubtedly have flashing lights or something as you approach the. Yeah, it's going to be a big thing. So
I just don't see the point in it. I don't.
well, I can understand why they need to rebuild and repair and realign some sections of 896, but
Not the way I don't think any accidents there, like in this whole stretch that they're talking about, because there are a lot of accidents.
there, I've been hit. I've been hit coming up 896 one early winter evening, probably about 7 o'clock. Somebody came out of Good Hope and none of the work they're doing is going to stop that.
No.
Just teed right into me. Luckily hit the rear wheel rather than the middle of the car because my son was in the passenger side, sitting next to me. There are fewer accidents, I think, in 896 now that they improved the road surface. They put a texturized product on the top of the road surface. There are
Rumble strips.
there are far fewer accidents than there used to be at 841. That's why the stop signs were
Well,
put in.
the four-way stop
Has-
essentially
has
stopped
taken-
the accidents.
taken
Somebody,
care of.
somebody jumped a stop sign a couple weeks ago and there was an accident, but that was,
Yeah, but that's a low speed fender bender type.
yeah.
But
Right.
before it was a four-way, there was a young girl who was in a car accident and very badly injured, and I think
Yeah.
that set a lot of things in motion.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we got the stop signs.
Yeah.
Because Pennsylvania is using federal funds in order to do the work, they're required to abide by federal guidelines for road construction. And there are very specific guidelines for what they can do in certain kind of roads with certain level of traffic. And that's what's led to the roundabout, because the other option was going to be a traffic light, and the neighbors did not want to lose the stop sign to a traffic light. And so the state at one point was sort of offering to sort of do something other than a roundabout, but somewhere along the line, it became a roundabout. This has been, I'm trying to remember discussions that occurred 6 or 7 years ago now but this has been, and the plans have been largely finalized for quite a long time.
Thank you.
Anything else on this? Okay, we'll move on to the raising awareness of Kemblesville and Franklin history. So we had a number of people stop by our booth at the Franklin Fall Festival, where we were handing out a brochure about Franklin Township, as well as brochures on the Mason-Dixon line, the events that led to basically why Franklin is named after Ben Franklin. And there was a short history of Franklin Township in there as well. And we had some large maps, historical maps. They were blown up and printed out of Franklin in the 1870s, the 1880s, and I'm not sure what the third one was. I think it was earlier than that. And, so we had people trying to figure out where their property was then and now and that kind of thing. And it was, it was nice. People took brochures. We had some nice conversations. The Fall Festival was a success, and they're going to do it again next year. And, we'll be back. I hope that I would like to encourage them to not have us in one tent with a U-shaped arrangement, because the table that they had the supervisors at, which was sort of staffed by one supervisor at various times, faced out, but the tables for the Pro Board and for the Historical Commission, which really had a lot more information, although we did not have the boxes in which you could put your ticket for the raffles. The supervisors had those. We were not really visible as who we are to anybody walking by. And so I would just like next time to be a little more visible. But we'll see how that goes. There's a year before that comes down the road. But I was happy with it. I mean, Sally, you were there, and Ann was there.
Yeah, it was
And-
nice. It was good.
Yeah,
But I think that's a good point. Maybe we can have our own tent.
either our own tent or, or if they get two tents, let's spread out the tables so that they all face out. And
Yeah,
so that people who are walking by can see what's going on, because basically, if you were walking by, it looked like there were these two prizes you could put a ticket in for the raffle, and that would bring you in, and then people would sort of find out that we were in there, or at least that's the way it seemed to me.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, I agree that I think most of the people wanted to know where they were on the map. So that's what we have to be prepared to show people where they live
Yeah, I think we
and
could,
who lived there before them.
right, if we could get, it would be interesting if we were able to work up some sort of map. That's a good point, with some sort of overlay of the historic properties with the current neighborhoods and things, so that it would be easier to figure out where people are, or if we were to even take one of the old maps and simply put the modern names for some of those roads on the road, so it would be quicker to figure out where people.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah, because a lot of people really seem fascinated with that. And, that would take a little bit of work, but there's a lot of lead time right now, so that would be a good.
And also it'd be kind of fun to have stories about people that lived in our township. So if we had a particular person that people were interested in, because they live there, we could do that and
Yeah.
apply the information.
Now that seems like a lot more work to me, but I think it's a good idea.
I agree.
No, I think that would be good. I mean, but I'm not sure that we could be up to speed for that for next fall. But we certainly might be able to maybe come up with another brochure about township taverns, in which we could talk about the dueling Furies and McLeaves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the Fury that was, what happened to him? There was something. Well, there was a whole Fury family, but one of them was somewhat notorious. The one that lived in Galligan's house.
Yeah,
We
I thought
decided
that
it was-
David,
yeah.
he and George McLeave kept, they kept getting called before the court.
Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe that'll be something to work on, is putting that together. So, in conjunction with that, I did drop off some of the brochures at 1723 for them to sort of take a look at. That was my first step in trying to get these out there. So I left them with someone for Sarah Cody to look at, but then my life got a little busy. So I haven't actually been back to the winery, so that's on my list to go back and see. I assume that they won't have a problem with having the brochures in the winery, because they're pretty generic and inoffensive. And then I'll just have to get the township to acquire some brochure holders. And I'm thinking that maybe the cidery, the Grubers, might be happy having the one on the Mason-Dixon line on their cidery, since they almost sit on it over in Louisville. So I'm still pursuing that. I actually got started on that after all this time, but things got a little busy. And then the final thing on this agenda under this topic is America 250. So America 250 is what they're calling the semi-quincentennial. And that's in 2026. And that is so I have some notes here. And that is essentially the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. And I was at a Chester County Historic Preservation Network meeting. Did you happen to, yeah, log in. And so some of the key things that I came away with from that is that the goal is not to have the 250th celebration focus exclusively on 1776, as sort of largely happened in 1976, because there are many, once you get away from the East Coast, there are many places in this country that really don't have solid connections to the events of 1776. And so the idea is to sort of focus on interesting aspects of local history that say something about the United States. But one of the, possible examples might be, and this is important to us, but something like the Louisiana Purchase is far more important to St. Louis's history than is the signing of the Declaration of Independence. There are no overarching guidelines, nor is there any, I think any is the right word, not even, no significant. There's no funding coming down from the federal level that they were aware of. The feds seem to be slower moving than the states this time around. And so federal involvement has been minimal, and the ideas and plans are occurring more at the state level. And the Chester County government, while involved, I think sees itself more as a publicizer and facilitator of local events with a specific focus from their point of view on developing tourism opportunities that will have some long-term staying power. So they're really interested. They're interested in anything that is useful from a tourism point of view, and they're especially interested in things that could be around even after 2026. At the local level, tourism doesn't need to be emphasized as far as the county is concerned. What we could do, and it doesn't have to be focused on July 4th. So we could do something locally with our neighboring townships on the Mason-Dixon line, say, or we could do a series of talks on local history, which we sort of do, but we could make a special emphasis maybe on some kind of development of local history, either within the series that we currently do with the New London Area Historical Society, or we could expand it to maybe work with New Garden, who also sponsors talks, and with London Britain, who currently doesn't, to come up with a sort of regional type of talks. Or this could be an added theme, or the central theme if we, to the fall festival for 2026, and we could have the main focus be at that time. So there are a lot of ways that we could handle it. When I talked about this at the last supervisors meeting, it was admittedly not the hot item on the agenda. But I also kind of feel a little bit like we might want to think about and develop some suggestions for something that we think could be accomplished locally with a historical angle, because I see the township staff and supervisors getting involved if we present them with something, but they're not going to have ideas and say, how can we implement this? At least as things stand now. Any thoughts?
I think it's interesting that they're not focusing on signing. I kind of think we should, because
Well,
we
we
are in
can.
that part of
I
the,
mean, it's certainly New London can, because New London's got, I think, there's a talk in itself, because New London's got the academy and 3 signers and the secretary of the Congress spent some time
at the Academy, which was run by Francis Allison, who then has connections to the University of Pennsylvania and the University of Delaware. But yeah, but I would also like to go, I mean, I don't mind doing something on 1776. But I would also like to, I think we should do something, say, on the Mason-Dixon line. And what I'm thinking of with the Mason-Dixon line focuses a little more on its you know, the role leading up to the history leading up to the surveying. I'm not talking so much about the Mason-Dixon line in the 1820s, when it became sort of symbolic of the separation between the free slave. I mean, that in itself is another topic, but I think that people don't really understand just the high degree of skill that was brought to the surveying by Mason and Dixon and the team that they work with. So that's something I would, and I think there's enough out there because New London, I mean, not in London, London, Britain had a talk on it. And we could also, another thing we could do is a religious freedom talk, because, you know, we had Quakers, not so many down here. We had Scotch-Irish Presbyterians because they were not pacifists. And if you've got a border dispute with a neighboring state, Scotch-Irish Presbyterians are much more interested in actively protecting their property rights, shall we say, than the Quakers. We had Welsh Baptists over in London, Britain, because for what, I don't know why they settled there, but London, Britain exists because Welsh Baptists wanted to have, essentially be their own self-governing community. And so they had for a time, a township that was centered on the Welsh Baptist faith, and it was, their services were actually in Welsh for a while. And then, you know, we have in the northern part of the township, what's now the Union American Methodist Episcopal Cemetery, but it was the African Union Church. And that's an entirely different story than the traditional African American, African Methodist Episcopal churches, because that's a Peter Spencer church, which got its start in Wilmington. And we had the Free Christian Church at Mount Olivet, which, you know, so there's a lot of stuff that we could also do that way as well. And it depends upon whether we do it ourselves and how we do it. And, you know, we'll have to decide what we want to do. Will it be talks? Will it, if we do something on the signing of the Declaration, how will we commemorate that? I assume we would do that on the 4th, but we, you know, might not have to. I don't know when the 4th falls in 2026.
So my sense from that workshop was that they are very encouraging and think it will be very helpful if we do partner up with our neighbors.
Right.
And I think the way it was presented, it sounded a lot like things you already have in the works would be great for that, to kind of emphasize them, update them, so forth. I think the Mason-Dixon line is a great theme, and you could, like you were saying, focus on the early times of it, but you know, you could easily get multiple, not projects, but events if you took that theme and kind of rolled it out at different points in history. And I think it'd be a great opportunity to work with the other historical commissions along the southern border of it, of our county, and kind of work in some of these other themes. Because when the workshop started and they put up their, they had this map up with basically highlighting areas that were involved in the Philadelphia campaign, which I guess is the battlefields. I looked at it, and I thought, okay, I think they said it involved 45 municipalities in Chester County, and I thought, but you left out all of the south and the west, which is.
Right,
where
well,
we are.
because the Philadelphia campaign is, ironically, in order to get up to the Brandywine battlefield, the British came up through Delaware, which is why there was the
Yeah.
skirmish at Custer's Bridge. And so we kind of got, they largely went roundabout. They ended up going through Hockessin and places like that. And yeah, and then that goes on, and then it becomes the Battle in the Clouds, Battle of Paoli. I
Yeah.
don't know if they're the same thing or
But I think
different.
it'd be cool because at our end, we've got a lot of the markers and the beginnings of the survey and so forth. And then the further west you go from us, it took on the more cultural significance, and like you even get to like Christiana with the riots and so
Right.
forth. Like you could really work out a lot of programs covering several different eras, which I think would be pretty cool.
Yeah, so anyway, there's time to think about it, but we might seek to identify a couple things that we feel we could handle reasonably well. Because I think it's basically going to come down to what we propose. At least as things stand now.
Could we
And
put together something that could kind of coincide with a grand opening of the Big Elk? A historic, I'm thinking some sort of historic plaques, etc. Talking about the Mason-Dixon. And it
also-
would be semi-permanent, or it would, maybe we could, you said something about that it would be tourist and enduring. Is that possible to link it to that site and work it that way? Because those things are already kind of in the works. And then we get a deadline.
Right, so
I thought they were very encouraging of doing things like that.
they are very encouraging doing things like that. What they want are things that are either staffed and open most of the time, or don't need to be staffed but can be open most of the time. So if there was some sort of trail or series of hikes that you could do relating to the Mason-Dixon line, that would be ideal, and that would, and Chuck, so I assume you're talking about having, say, some sort of either information at the start of the hike or information when you got to the marker. For example, and I have mentioned this once to Sarah Sato, who is the environmental education person, but she also handles historical education for the White Clay and the Big Elk. And Pennsylvania is the only of the three states where the tri-state marker, the three states that meet there, Pennsylvania, New Zealand, that has public land that you can use to walk to it. So the burden of getting some sort of informational sign out there is really on Pennsylvania. And it would be a really great place to put an informational sign, because even though it's the tri-state marker, when you get out there, you realize that it's only got M's and P's on it, and there's no D for Delaware. And so it really cries out for an explanation. So that is the kind of thing. The problem is that in almost all these cases, we do have to work with DCNR in order to get any kind of events going, because, or markers or whatever, because all the markers are on our, from our side, are owned by DCNR. Their land is what goes up against it. I think what you're suggesting is a good idea. I think we could work with them on preparing materials so that people could do some kind of trail hike with information. I know that Dave Hawk is working on a kind of overview and timeline of the Delaware Arc, which the more he digs is getting more interesting in some ways is as a political issue is just as interesting as the Mason-Dixon line, because there was a point at which early on the territories that was what Delaware was constituted as prior to independence, their assembly basically passed a law that said that all these people who think that just because there's this line that somebody has drawn doesn't mean they're still not subject to taxation and serving on juries. Because at one time, and people don't realize this, when Penn's territories were treated as a unity, when the state of Delaware and what's now the state of Delaware and Pennsylvania was treated as one, Newcastle County sort of started at the river and started at the Delaware and roughly followed the Arc until it intersected the Brandywine and then followed the Brandywine north. And so we would have been in Newcastle County at that time in this location if the county's administration extended this far in. But we weren't founded until after 1701 when the line was drawn, but somewhere between 1709 and 1717, Delaware passed this law. And the reason I can't be specific about when they did it is because the information is not in the Delaware state law book. So that's why I know that it occurred when Gookin was the lieutenant governor for Delaware and Pennsylvania, but and so his term runs from 1709 to 1717. So there's a lot of stuff there that can be done, but it cannot be done without the cooperation of the local preserve and park. And so that's something, you know.
I wonder, given the professionals that the county has working for them, if we may be able to take advantage of that, put a little more pressure on to get some assistance with that.
I think that the connectivity project might actually work to develop that. At some point, I think it's tomorrow, I've got to talk to Peter Benton about the Mason-Dixon line and the Arc. And so he's involved with the MD HIP and that will probably come up.
Did you have a chance at that meeting to meet David Blackburn?
No, I did not. He showed up late, as you may recall.
Oh, I couldn't tell on the.
Yeah.
I just didn't know
No,
if
he
you
was-
had the group knew who he was and.
Yeah, so but I did not get a chance to meet him, but he sounds like a very dynamic.
He's
and
very
interesting.
experienced.
Yes, he brings a lot. So David Blackburn is going to essentially taking over what was Karen Marshall's job. Karen Marshall, the Chester County has a heritage preservation officer who's essentially a sort of countywide historic preservation officer. And the first person to really hold the job was a woman named Jane Davidson, who
Was awesome.
really was awesome. And she was succeeded by Karen Marshall, who held it for many years and was very good. Karen Marshall retired a few years back, and I think they've gone through 2 or 3 people, although
Oh, no.
one of them is still around, but she's just not holding the job. So I'm not sure what all the details are, but it sounds like they finally got somebody who's going to sit tight and bring a lot of knowledge and experience and dynamism. I mean, just listening to him talk
Yeah.
was quite an experience. He's a very good talker. He has a lot of experience. He was worked in the National Park Service
Yeah.
for an extended, as a long period of time.
I wrote down 34 years with the National Park Service at lots of different sites.
Yeah.
Has a background in architectural history and cultural landscapes.
So I think that, that will be helpful. But right now, I think what might be more helpful with some of this stuff, at least as pertains to the Mason-Dixon line, but maybe even to themes of religious diversity and other things, at least insofar as they're grounded locally, is the connectivity project, because that's very much intended to be a connectivity project with an element of historical interpretation. And that could be, the historical interpretation can also be industrial. I mean, we could have something about mills. There was a lot of milling that went on in the area. And so, depending upon how the advisor sees things and what works, that's another thing. I mean, just as with the tourism thing, you need to have things that people can get to. It's going to be important to see what will be sort of always available for people who come and want to try and tour these things and see these things. But there's already a fair amount of trails, and there's been historically plans to link trails up, so this may give some new life to that. But we're not going to get to the Mason-Dixon line without working with the state. Anything else? Yeah, so I'm hoping that the issues over the campground will have subsided and been put to rest, and it will be easier to work with the state on other projects. But the good thing is that Sarah Sato, who is the sort of education person for White Quay and Big Elk, is not really involved in any of that. So, and we have a good, a decent working relationship. She's already conducting nature programs in both the preserve and park. There was apparently a walk out there.
What did you say about a campground?
Yeah. Oh, I'm tempted to say, where have you been, Chuck? So,
Well, that's fine.
no, I couldn't tell you what day it was, but DCNR had a presentation of a proposed plan for the development of the Big Elk Creek State Park that was presented at Lincoln University to
Mhm.
and it was well attended. And I would say that I think 99% of the people in attendance were probably stunned by the proposed campground, which is in Elk. What was proposed for Franklin was really more of an accessible trail on the south side of Strickersville Road, additional trails, an expanded parking lot that would be on the other side of Augustin Lane, so it would be closer toward Elk. And there was some kind of viewing area, but the viewing area ranged from something that looked like it was made of large branches to a couple benches. So there was at least a range of options presented there. There were also, I think, permanent bathroom facilities that would be sited near the parking lot as well. In the Franklin portion there was pretty much be all of that and more in Elk. but you should be able to find, I can send you, I shot most of the presentation. I can send you a link to the printout, the sort of document that I made, if you want. There's more information out there, and it remains a hot topic on Facebook if you're in the right Facebook group.
What's Facebook?
Yes, that's just what I thought.
Yep, very
Um,
proud not to be, yes.
Yeah, well,
That's
actually, I'm not very active on Facebook except for basically putting out information about talks and historic events locally.
Mhm.
Because I think with something like this, it's useful. The problem is, you have to be careful who's your source of information, because anybody can post information, and people don't always have their stories straight. It's enough trouble as it's presented. So,
So there's a town hall meeting on January 10th
right.
at the charter school. Did you mention that?
No, so I guess it's just been finalized. So this is, I mean, to some degree, the development of Big Elk is more of a park issue than a historic issue, except that I'm a little concerned about some of the stuff they're putting near ruins in Elk, actually, not so much us, but in Elk. Because the campground, the north end of the campground would be very close to the paper mill ruins and the houses that are along Spring Lawn Trail. But it was a subject of discussion here at the supervisors meeting, whatever the third Wednesday of November was. I was actually in upstate New York. They devoted an hour and a half prior to the meeting for public comment, and then took a vote during the meeting to seek to hold a town hall style meeting in conjunction with Elk Township. Elk Township had its supervisors meeting this Monday. And I don't know if the supervisors were there, because I did not attend that meeting, but our supervisors. Did you go, Nan?
No, I didn't go. I know Jeff Eastburn was there.
Okay.
I don't believe that any of the supervisors were there.
Okay.
But they
But
had
I-
already been talking, and they had set up the town hall meeting prior to the Elk meeting.
Right. So on January 10th at the charter school, and I assume that means the charter school's facilities in Kemblesville, because it's got two locations.
That's what I believe at 7 o'clock. Yeah.
Yeah, at 7 p.m.
It's
And
somewhere it
encourage-
said the old Kimblesville Elementary School.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
They're
I-
asking everybody to carpool because there's limited parking.
right.
Right. I suspect people will start parking up the doctors and daycare lot across the road as well.
Yeah. The church too.
Yeah, the church, that's right. The church is right there.
The post office.
Well, the post office is a little bit of a walk. I wouldn't necessarily recommend walking up Appleton Road to the school in the dark, although I might do it.
I wouldn't
but-
want to cross 896 there either.
Well, crossing 896, you can sort of you can sort of see who's coming, especially with the headlights on. But it might not be a bad idea to see if we can arrange for some sort of crossing guard situation.
They've done a good job because they have the two Pennsylvania senators there. They have John Lawrence there. They have all the county commissioners coming. Sorry.
And apparently they got
And
some.
DCNR, I guess, is going to be there. And
Yeah,
some-
that's what they said, DCNR. They didn't say who, though.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that'll be Rob Campion, who
Well,
really has no control over the process.
Yeah.
Or if it will be, Rob Campion is the local
Ranger.
park manager down here. Yeah, White Clay and Big Elk. And I know there's a lot of talk about trying to, turn Big Elk back into a preserve, but that will not stop some of the issues that are already happening. So if it goes back into a preserve, I really think that some sort of park presence in the Big Elk, is an official presence, permanent, is a good idea. Personally, because right now there is no response time if you've got an incident in the Big Elk. If you've got to get somebody over there from White Clay, because they're down in White Clay, basically at the Baptist Meeting House and Cemetery, if you know where that is. That's where the park office is in White Clay, and they're all based there right now. So there are some changes, I think, some aspects of the plan that would be a good thing to keep. Because I sit in on the London Britain Historical Commission meetings, but they have tight interaction with the Friends of White Clay Creek Preserve, and some of them attend the meetings and are actually on the board there of the Friends of White Clay Creek, which is really in many ways the sort of fundraising and volunteer arm of the state, the way it's set up legally. But there are all kinds of issues about misuse of trails and preserve, and all kinds of problems they're dealing with. And I think I think people should be aware that getting a change back to a preserve is not going to stop that aspect from happening, because it's happening there. It's a piece of public land that, there's public access to. So from my point of view, it would be at least good to have an official presence somewhere in Franklin or Elkton, so that somebody would be closer. But that's not historic stuff. I'm just expressing my concerns over how this all plays out eventually.
So that's 7 o'clock on Sunday?
January 10th, whatever day.
Oh, January, not December.
No,
No,
January
January
10th.
10th.
Okay.
January 10th. Whatever day that is.
January 10th, 7 o'clock. Yep.
January 10th is Wednesday.
Yep. Avon Grove Charter School, 1769 New London Road, Landenberg.
Okay,
It's the old Campbellsville Elementary School.
right.
So Senator Comita, Senator Kane, Chester County Commissioners, Representative John Lawrence, DCNR representatives, plural.
Yeah. So I don't know who that includes,
I don't either, didn't say.
right? I'm sure there'll be more information. Are you on the township's mailing list, Chuck?
No?
You would have gotten that email if you were.
Yeah, or if you do Facebook, it's Stop the Campground Now, I think is what it's called. Something like that.
Not gonna do Facebook.
All right,
Okay.
well, you can get on the
Not gonna
township.
do it.
You
You
can
get
get
on the mailing list.
You can get on the township's email list. Yeah, I'll just warn you that every single email, no matter what the topic is, unfortunately comes through with the first word is urgent.
Now
Um,
you're talking me out of that.
No, there's a lot of good information that comes through about roads blocked and things like that, and upcoming road work. So I think it's worth being on it. I just wish that they didn't always start, the first word wasn't always urgent.
Like breaking news.
Yeah.
Everything's breaking news.
Yeah, but other than that, it's good to be on that email list. All right, so I'll move on to the HC website if there are no other comments. And you'll be pleased to know that I have no comments about the HC website right now. And I have the main thing under township history right now is my working with Tim Barnacup, and there's nothing to report about that. He's continuing to work on his history of the white clay, but it's really going to be focused on the park lands, the preserve in the White Clay Preserve and the White Clay Creek State Park in Delaware. So it's, while it's not going to come in really to Franklin, I am going to be working with him, as I think I mentioned last time, helping him develop a chapter on the Mason-Dixon line. As for the multi-municipal identification of historic resources in Big Elk Creek State Park. So, yeah, so I've been, out of the township since for most of September and November and October. But last Sunday, I started getting out, and I photographed mainly, I'll explain. So we did an inventory, partly for our own purposes and partly so that the state would know where historic resources, and they're all ruins, are in the Big Elk. And we began this before it was a park, when it was still essentially the Big Elk Creek section of the White Clay Creek Preserve. So going in and identifying ruins, working a lot with Emily Kilby, who does Forgotten Fir Hill. I don't know if you're aware of who she is, but she probably has she has an encyclopedic knowledge of what's in Fair Hill, and she knows most of what's in the former Strawbridge lands as well. Anyway, I had prepared something very quickly after walking with Nan, mostly. Sally, you were out once, I think, with us.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, and took photographs, and Paul Overton, who's on the pro board, was also out on one trip. And that focused on identifying Big Elk historic resources in Franklin, because at that time, that was, Franklin is what we're responsible for as a historical commission. Elk doesn't actually have a historical commission, and since I'd done this for Franklin, I agreed to work with Mary Gruber, who I guess is kind of one of the last surviving members of what was Elk's Historical Commission. It kind of fell apart, I think, is what happened. A lot of people retired, were no longer involved, but they don't have a functioning historical commission anymore. And so Emily's been involved in that. Nan's been going out on that. And we went out in the summer, and you can't really see anything, because when the foliage is there, it's impossible to see this stuff. And you would never realize what is there. And so now the foliage is down. And so this Sunday was the first non-hunting day that I was home. And so even though it was sort of drizzly, I went out with my cell phone, and I made some recordings of the paper mill, which is off of Spring Lawn Trail. The dam is there. The dam is the biggest feature. The dam is huge. And there are a couple houses that are across the Spring Lawn Trail, roughly from the dam site. They're actually across from that first spur trail as you're walking down Spring Lawn from 841. And so I took photographs of those, cutting my way in with snips, which seems to be the way. And we have never gone out without some sort of pruners on hand, because of just how overgrown it is. So we I'm gonna go out again because, hunting will be suspended, I think, for about 2 weeks, starting on the 10th. And so, I'm gonna try and get out every day if I can, if the weather's not horrible, to finish that up. Because ideally, I should get this information in the hands of, the planners for Big Elk before the end of the year. And I told them I would do it, so, I think it's important that they know where some of this stuff is. They currently know where some is. They don't know where all is because it's obvious from some of the maps that they were using, in the presentation. It only shows a certain number of, historic ruins. It doesn't show all of them. I don't know that we'll find all of them, but the more I can identify with pictures, they will take that information, and the park has access to a sophisticated, GBS, receiver that they can actually very clearly pinpoint exactly where these ruins are once they know where to go looking. And I have a pretty good working relationship with, Sarah Sato again, who is the educational person. So, I'm starting that back up. I've started it back up, and so, going to do that. I got, Eric Baker, from, London, Britain was interested in coming out too. We'll see if it,
Well, I'm interested too, but we talked about Sunday, but I think it's gonna rain again.
No, I was watching very carefully. Last time I was out there, I didn't melt, I would point out. Just, you need some good Gore-Tex, jackets and some pants that, don't
Yeah.
hold the
Yeah.
moisture, and some decent shoes and socks. And it was fine, actually. The only thing that I was worried about was when I'd walked out on the top of the dam, and then I was climbing down the face, which was, wet, bare rock, and I didn't want to slide on that, because if I fell, I was the only person around. I saw 3 other people out on the Spring Lawn Trail that day. I think it was 3, it might have been.
That's
No,
the
3
trail.
other people.
After
I'll join you
cross
on Sunday.
Yeah, and by the way, the rain, right now, let me finish, just so I can speak to rain. The rain, if you look at the radar, because I was checking this, it's gonna rain here, but odds are the morning will be pretty good. Okay, just so you know. So, sorry.
The Spring Lawn Trail, the one that's over the bridge on 841, and there's gates and people park there?
Yeah.
Is that it? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought.
So it's just on the
This side,
outside.
Louisville.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
it's like if you're going from Louisville, it's just before the bridge,
Right, exactly.
and it's on the right-hand side.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's one end. The other end is on, if you're going from here to Louisville and you cross, the Big Elk, then there's a little entrance with a gate, and not really, only a couple of spots you could pull into, on the right-hand side, very soon after you cross the Big Elk. And that's the other end of Spring Lawn.
That, if you go down 841?
No, sorry, Strickersville.
Oh, Strickersville, sure.
You go from here to
Okay.
Louisville.
Okay.
Yeah, from here to Louisville. Yeah, so it's after, like, Mount Olivet, the end of Mount Olivet is on our side of Elk Creek there, and then you cross, and then the next old road with a gate on your right is Spring Lawn.
Okay.
So. Anything else? Okay. So talks and training, the only thing I want to talk about with respect to that right now, New London has had to twice cancel its talk on Cape May. And I'm thinking we should do something different for March, maybe get
Nan, did you go hear, Emily talk about, her and her sister's visits to all the,
Oh, the Mason Dixon?
yeah.
Yeah, I saw it. I wanted to go, but I was unable to make it.
Yeah, I was in upstate New York. I couldn't go.
Would she
I-
come and talk? She and her sister to New London?
That's what I would like to ask her. I think that would be, I would rather make that. I feel like putting the Cape May thing there again in March might, not be ideal, and that maybe what we should do, is, try and, make we could have the Cape May guy come back in May. And then it's a nice lead into summer. I just want to check and see if,
Yeah.
somebody's not trying to get on and I'm ignoring them. If somebody is in the waiting room, they've given up on me. But yeah, so, and right now, I don't have any, there are not any other talks I'm aware of coming up. Are you, anybody else aware of any historic talks coming up?
So was it Emily's talk? It was, I forget, was it, were walking? She had two of them, one where we were walking
They
and one where she
visited.
wasn't?
She and her sister visited all the,
Okay,
Mason Dixon.
all the way across the state, right?
No,
Delaware?
in Cecil County. I
Oh,
believe.
okay.
All of the ones in Cecil County. And I
Okay.
think that it's the first, I don't, but anyway, I was sort of interested to hear what she had to say.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be interested in any talk she was given, so.
I agree. I agree.
But I couldn't make it, unfortunately. So I thought maybe if she was interested, if she and her sister were interested, we could get them to do it again in New London. And the other thing I just want to mention here is, did you all see my email about the Chester County History Center membership? That has finally actually happened. It is good through the end of 2024. And you can go and download to your phone the membership card. They're not mailing, they're trying to avoid mailing out paper cards. I think it's both the postage and processing and everything else issue. So the email tells you how you can do it, but you do not have to do that. You can simply go in and tell them that you are from the Franklin Township Historical Commission and you're here to do some research. It might be good just to make a note of the membership number and mention that when you do. And that's in the email, but other than that, that has finally been handled and completed. And next year, I'm hoping the renewal will go smoothly. And then in terms of revisions to the historic district ordinance, that's been kind of in abeyance. I think that I'm going to try and get this restarted sometime in February or March. It's basically snagged on the need for having the building officer comment on questions that were raised by the solicitor. And so we just need to get a meeting going. But with the budget, the road program, and the Big Elk on the table, I think it's going to be an uphill battle to try and get Jeff and the building officer and the solicitor to focus on answering these things and just getting this thing enacted. So I'm hoping that by March or February even, that some of this stuff will be out of the way. The Big Elk, I don't think is going very fast. some of it would be.
It's a good time to ask about the house without the porch. What's happening with that? Is that, it's still there, obviously.
Nothing,
Okay,
as far as I know.
okay.
But in, for the moment, no news is good news.
Yeah,
The house is still standing.
yeah.
So. But nothing.
Okay.
Is there anything else? I'll start with my members. Want to raise or bring to the attention of the commission? Okay, so is there anything that our guests would like to discuss or raise? And if so, the only thing I'd ask you is you turn on the mic before you speak. But if there's nothing you want to, you're not under any obligation to say anything. But if you had any questions that we could answer, now's a really good time to do it.
I have a bunch of questions.
Well, this is,
Well, like, I had silly questions.
okay, well, you want to discuss this after the formal meeting is over?
Did you say you had the date for our reorg meeting in January?
Yeah, so it's the second Tuesday. I think that's the 9th.
What is it?
The second Tuesday.
It's the meeting.
Oh, so, well, it actually would be our first formal meeting. So every year, all the township boards, including the supervisors, have to formally reorganize themselves. They hold organizational meetings. And they elect their officers. And in our case, in the case of the supervisors, they go through all the stuff that needs to be handled at that point in time. So actually, if you decide you're interested in joining the Historical Commission, if you know before that January meeting that you want to do it, like with, towards a week or two from now, your name you would probably be appointed in January. That would be, and then the first official meeting of the Historical Commission and the HARB would be on January 9th. We can't meet the 2nd because that's when the supervisors are meeting and can't have 2 meetings in one room. And we would elect the chair, the vice chair, and secretary for both boards. And then we basically just have a normal meeting again. But it's an organizational meeting because we have to elect the officers of the board.
Is it here?
Yeah. But it's also, it would be here at 7 o'clock. It would also, it would be a hybrid meeting, so you could also attend these.
And do we know if anybody's expiring?
Well, Nan will not be continuing on the HARB. I have to look into that because I don't know whether you need to resign, Nan, or whether your term expires. The township thinks it's expiring, but I think you may need to resign. So I have to double check that because there was a major mess up in the way.
Let me know, is Beth Scalish is coming on board?
Well, so by the time I was in town on a steady basis and could talk with Beth was fighting off a cold, so I have to give her, send her an email again and see if she's.
Well, I think she's gonna do it, so.
Is she? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I've got to get an email out to her again because she did not want to talk, I guess, a week ago because she was, she had a bad cold or something. I
Well,
can't.
she said that she was interested, so I was.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm not, so I thought she was going to get back to me. She hasn't, so I have to get back to her. That's all. Yeah, and I don't know what Kathy is gonna want to do.
She just wants to do HARB, which we meet only a couple times.
Yeah, and I think, and that would be fine. you know.
Right.
Um,
And I think she wants to be called into the meeting when she needs to come.
right, and that's not a problem.
Okay.
So what's the difference between historical commission and historical officers review?
So the Kemble's, so the Historical Architectural Review Board, it was created to make recommendations to the supervisors concerning the appropriateness of exterior modifications to houses in the, or buildings in the historic district. They need not be houses. So the primary body for dealing with issues of historical interest in the township is the Historical Commission. The HARB's area of responsibility is much narrower and is only really focused on the historic district and is primarily focused on making recommendations to the supervisors who must then either approve or disapprove of proposed exterior changes to properties. And there are guidelines for how those things can be judged, but generally speaking, most of the changes that anybody has wanted to do have been accepted. I only know two instances, one in which we recommended that tearing down the building in the center of the village, that the one that now has the sort of fake black windows on it, is missing a porch. I don't know. The windows are covered because the insurance company required them to be covered. Prior owner wanted to tear it down. We, after arduous meetings, we recommended that it was not appropriate. And there was one instance in which a type of roof that somebody wanted to put on that was simply not historically appropriate, nor was it ever used anywhere in the village. We recommended that was not appropriate. And so from 2004, those are the only two times that I think it's 2004.
Thank you.
But generally speaking, I would say what the Historical Commission does is, first off, it's broader, it pertains to the whole township. It's not focused on, I don't know, 20 structures in Kemblesville. And it also deals with more interesting issues. And you're also less likely to find yourself in a meeting where an applicant decides that you're the source of all the applicant's problems, which happens every now and then. I don't personally think that's a fair assessment of the situation, but having to go through another step can be a source of frustration. But when the historic district was created and the HARB was established, the township worked with all the existing property owners at the time to create it. And it was a lengthy process. And some properties that they wanted to have into it that was more peripheral and ultimately opted out. But it is recognized by the state of Pennsylvania's Historical and Museum Commission as having enough integrity to be eligible for the National Register of Historic Places. And the time the one time that was most evident to me was when I once drove into the village on a winter evening, and there'd been a moderate snowfall and it was very quiet. There was no traffic, and for whatever reason, all the signs that are there didn't pop in the way that they often do, and you could just sense that you were in a village that could have been more or less like this in the late 1800s, which is the time period that the document that established the historic district refers to as its timeframe. So I think the technical term is the narrative emphasizes the 1800s, late 1800s. I am not a historic preservation person. And none of us really are. I think we're at best, at this point, experienced amateurs.
Has somebody made a decision not to pursue an actual National Register listing?
It's complicated to pursue the actual National Register nomination. We would basically have to get everybody on board, and then if we did that, that would potentially create more burdens on the property owners.
Red tape.
And so I would part of me is just happy that we are where we are. One of the benefits of being in this position was that the state has to treat us as if we are a National Register Historic District. And so with respect to the 896 project, those houses are right on top of the road anyway, in the center of the village. But so there was no further encroachment of the road into the properties, and it's not let's just say that the status quo is better than something worse.
Right, so it's not gonna be like Hamilton.
Right. Hamilton is horrible, and it's really a shame because Route 1 has ruined Hamilton. Yeah. Do you know, anybody here not know where Hamilton is? It's so at 52 and Route 1, it's the village on the far side from here of Longwood.
The road is like right at the front
Especially
door.
on the north side of Route 1, all those houses are right
Mhm.
on the road.
By the firehouse over there?
No, there's not a firehouse in
On
Hamilton.
52, I know.
The
52
other, where 52 goes down to Delaware.
Right,
Oh,
right.
okay. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if you're coming up from Delaware, you
Yeah,
can see those houses.
especially as you're driving from here towards 52 on Route 1,
Mhm.
all the stuff on the left
Yeah.
has the road like right up to the porches.
So,
Um,
That'll be my house in about 6 months. But
Behind there is pretty nice. I've been behind there.
Yeah, it looks like behind there, I agree, but
Yeah, what you see on the road is terrible, but honestly, the vast majority of it is behind those 6, 7 houses. There's
Yeah.
a little community back there. It's pretty nice.
It's very nice,
One
right?
of the DuPonts was, one of the DuPonts was heavily involved in designing a lot of those houses, actually.
would that have been PS DuPont,
Yeah, maybe.
the Longwood, the guy,
I think it had
Yeah.
relationship to Longwood. I think it had something to do with workers,
Right.
et cetera.
that would be PS DuPont the third.
Yeah.
I think it's the third
Yeah, easy. Oh, I see what you're saying.
for Longwood, yeah. Okay, so if there's no other business, then I think we can no public comment, at least no comments publicly. We can call it a night at what would that be, 8:52. 8:52 is close enough.
How long are our terms? I didn't realize we had terms. You told me I don't have a term. You told me I have to do this until I die.
That was my feeling.
Yeah.
So I think it's 5 years.
That's what the paperwork we sent.
Yeah,
Is it
5
on
years,
the
yeah.
website?
What?
Is it on the website?
It probably is, yeah, the township website. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't pay any. Same thing goes with the planning. They go, "Yeah, are you gonna serve again?" I'm like, I guess so.
Lifetime.
Yep.
all right, well, I'm gonna shut down the meeting.
Good night, all.
Yeah, good night.
I have a young question, where is the historic section?